Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so glad that folks can make it. We're really excited that y'all are here with us. We want to welcome y'all to a conversation about the field of parent power and leadership. Um, and we're really excited to have you all join us. So I want to begin by going a bit over the study overview. So our research study, the purpose was to try and understand how collective parent action relates to the learning and thriving of families, especially children and youth. So you can regard this study as an intergenerational study and as an opportunity for us to learn from organizations, from parents, and from their children. So our research was grounded in a few questions. We wanted to understand the size and the scope. So what is the landscape of collective parent action initiatives throughout the United States? How do groups engage the children of these parent leaders? So we were really curious about what's out there, who's out there, and what issues are they working on, where are they located, who's comprised of these organizations. And then we wanted to talk about the process and learning research questions. So what is the relationship between collective parent action, families, and the learning and thriving of children? How does this happen? For whom and under what conditions? With these questions, we were really interested in trying to determine how organizations were engaging the children of parent leaders and what, if at all, do these children learn through watching their parents, grandparents, relatives participate in these advocacy, leadership, and organizing groups. So those were the two umbrellas, if you will, of questions that we wanted to answer through this research process. So for those of you who have joined our previous webinars before, this is not new information, but we'd love to continue to reiterate it for folks who might be new here. So through learning from children and families, we really wanted to center community and family knowledge. We recognize that parents are really dynamic leaders and they hold so much knowledge and their experiences we value here as a research team. We celebrate the things that they learn, the ways that they lead, and the lessons that they impart on their children. And so we wanted to document the conditions of personal and collective transformation. What we mean by that is that as parents are engaging in these organizations, as parents are advocating for themselves, as they're learning professional development skills, as they're learning how to lead campaigns, there is a lesson of almost that is placed on their children as well. So as parents are learning, as they're engaging in these things, their children are observing them. And so that's that collective and personal transformation that we talked about. As parents are going through this personal transformation, there's a collective transformation happening for their families and for the organizations that they're a part of as well. So there's a connection between the work that parents are doing and the learning and thriving that occurs with their children. So this slide is some images that we captured from various organizations. And on the top left, you'll see that there are parent leaders with the Community Organizing and Family Issues Group, commonly known as COFI. In the top right are parent and youth leaders with Parent Voices. The bottom left is parent leaders with Arise. And then on the bottom right are parent leaders with Parents for Public Schools. If you're from any of these organizations and you're joining us today, thank you. If you are familiar with these organizations, you probably know the work that they do. If you'd like to get familiar with them and you're unfamiliar right now, we're going to talk about towards the end of the webinar, a really great way for you to get involved with them. So I'm going to pass it now to Joanna, who's going to lead us through our report findings from phase 1 of our study. Joanna?
Great. Thanks so much, Parker. And thank you to everybody for being here today. It's wonderful to see so many bright, familiar faces and also to see a lot of new.
You want to come in?
Okay. So Parker just mentioned that we started off this study. This is a 2-phase study. The first phase is what we're going to be talking about today, which was the field scan or landscape analysis of parent leadership organizations across the country, which was developed through a survey that many of you took. And resulted in a parent power directory that Jennifer is going to talk about a little bit later, and a state of the field report, which I'm going to talk about right now. The next phase of our study, which we can't wait to share once we have our findings, will be in-depth conversations with 5 parent leadership organizations throughout the US to learn more about this question of how children learn and benefit and thrive as a result of their parents as leaders. Next slide, Parker. Okay, so I'm thrilled to announce that the landscape analysis report is ready and it's available on the Metro Center website. And Danielle will put the link in the chat there. So feel free to look through it, but I'm going to give you some of the high-level findings today. Next slide, please. Okay, so how did we do this? Our first step was that we did focus groups and interviews with parent leaders, staff, and funders who fund parent leadership work to inform what we put in the survey, but also to inform how the results could be used and how people could benefit from them. These interviews and focus groups were so instrumental in developing our survey and figuring out which organization should be part of this. And we're so grateful to everybody, especially many of you who are here today who participated in these. We compiled a database then of 699 organizations that we believed could do parent leadership development work. We didn't know because we couldn't exactly tell from their web pages if all of them did it, but we cast a wide net. We did know that at least 220 definitely were parent leadership organizations, either because we knew those organizations personally or because they had parent or family in their names. So then our next step was we wanted as many of those organizations as possible to take our survey. So we reached out to them through email. Apologies if you got a lot of emails from me asking to take the survey. We also called many organizations, reached out on social media, did a couple of webinars and informational sessions so folks could learn more about this study, and reached out through our personal networks. And ultimately, there were 182 organizations that responded in time to be included in the analysis for this report, although more than 182 organizations have responded since then. So that's really exciting, and we hope that responses are going to keep rolling in. Next slide. Okay, so the criteria for organizations to be included was simple. First, they had to work towards social, economic, and racial justice. We were not interested for the purposes of this study in capturing some of the more reactionary or aggressive parent leadership organizations. They had to work with families, so parents had to be, a core part of the people who they worked with. And they had to do leadership development. That had to be sort of explicit part of what they do, whether it's through a formal curriculum or more informal facilitation. Leadership development had to be there. Next slide, please. Thank you. All right, so for the findings, so our first main finding was that these organizations are primarily led by Black and Latino women, and they're multiracial and multilinguistic spaces. So as opposed to the residential segregation and school segregation that we see in a lot of the US, these are really multiracial spaces. 84% of the organizations noted that they engage more than one racial group, with an average of 4 racial groups per organization. These spaces are also often refuges for emergent bilinguals or multilinguals. They're rare spaces, often in their communities, that welcome and celebrate speaking one's native language. So in 1/3 of the organizations, either half, most, or all parents spoken language other than English as their first language. And we've heard from many of these parents that their ability to express themselves in their own language really helps them become more civically engaged and connected to their communities. So we thought it was really important that so many organizations are engaging emergent bilinguals. And then I'll emphasize again that by and large, this probably doesn't come as a surprise to most of you, but these are women-led organizations. So women made up most or all of the parents in 94% of the organizations. And I think we could have a whole great discussion about this, but I think this issue of how do we make sure that these spaces are ones that are continued to be designed to support women to grow their power, while also welcoming more men, is something that the field can continue to grapple with. Next slide, please. Okay, so a second finding was that the organizations really have a multi-issue focus. The organizations reported almost 100% that parents are the ones who make decisions about what issues the organization focuses on. And because parents and children's lives are touched by so many issues that overlap, the organizations also tended to work on multiple issues. So on average, they worked on 5 issues. One organization, Transform Education Now, I think summed this up nicely. They said, we focus on the skills and tactics necessary to organize rather than the issue. Issues are secondary to the training and leadership that parents grow in. The leading 3 issues were K-12 education, early childhood education, and racial equity. And we really see the range of issues reflected in some of the policy wins that the organizations noted in their open-ended responses, which you can see on the next slide. So these are just some examples. Many organizations talked about removing police officers from schools and replacing them with restorative justice, expanding Medicaid coverage and school-based mental health supports. Next slide. Thanks. Making sure that districts adopted bilingual education policies, expanding access to driver's licenses for immigrants, expanding rental insurance, passing paid family and medical leave policies. So the organizations were working on a lot of different issues. And because of this, we heard from both parents and funders in our focus groups the importance and the move toward, for many funders, more flexible funding opportunities that aren't tied to a specific issue or campaign, so that parents can really follow their interests and passions. Next slide. Okay. A third key finding, and again, for those of you who do parent leadership development every day, this isn't surprising, but I think it was important to quantify it, is that these organizations, and the picture isn't showing for some reason, but there we go. The organizations offer a broad range of leadership development opportunities in addition to holistic, whole family, whole person supports. So, there's been a lot of movement, I think, in the past decade or so for the community organizing field to move to a more healing-centered approach that prioritizes the well-being of members rather than just mobilizing people toward a policy win and then kind of forgetting about them. And we really see this in these findings. So organizations are offering leadership development opportunities, like 3/4 are offering meetings with public officials, 69% offering public speaking opportunities, 61% offering action research. And at the same time, they're also offering overwhelmingly parenting support, mentoring, support with a child's academic development, healing centered activities, and many, are offering meals and childcare, immigration services, legal services, really just meeting families where they are and making sure that their needs are met. So next slide. And we want to hear from you a little bit now. So we're curious, how have you seen parent leadership organizations support parents and caregivers and their families from a holistic perspective? Give folks just a moment to gather their thoughts and put them in the chat. And while you're thinking, I'll just read a few of the responses that we got from some of our organizations, if you want to advance the slide, Parker. So someone said thousands of testimonials support that our organization has supported families through confusing, difficult times. Someone said it creates community and creates a special bond between parent and child. Another person used this language of community bonds. Our biggest success would be the community bonds that develop among parent leaders. Not only is each class like a small family, but the broader alumni group is also really very close and so supportive of each other. Okay. So I see Patty in the chat says offering quality parallel curriculum for the children of parent leaders, CLTI, the Children's Leadership Training Institute. Absolutely. And Donna says providing a healthy meal and quality childcare at gatherings and encouraging self-care. I love that. It's amazing what just bringing people together over food can do to build community and make people feel welcome. Natasha says bring them into spaces together and pay for their ability to attend food, travel, childcare, lodging. Thank you, Natasha. I'll read one more from Paula. Actively looking for ways to connect with families, especially those who are underserved, who have lack of access to technology, being out in the community, not only providing services remotely. Absolutely, being out in the community. I think that's really important. Thank you. So feel free to keep putting ideas in the chat, and we'll keep moving. So another finding was that the organizations that responded have a very strong racial equity focus. 75% focused on racial equity in their leadership development, whether it was in their curriculum or just in the way that they facilitated discussions. 65% said that they worked on racial equity as one of their issue areas. And we could see that racial equity really featured prominently in the policy wins as well. Next slide. And then last but not least, and this really gets to the part about the benefits of children. So we heard a lot of stories over the years from parent leaders about the impact on their children of their activism. But we really didn't know before we did the survey how intentional organizations were being about working with parent leaders. And we actually found that 79% reported that children attend events with their parents, like meetings or rallies. And 1/3 of the organizations actually said that they offer some kind of leadership development for children. So CLTI, the Children's Leadership Training Institute, is an example of that. And many said that they would like to do more, that if they had more funding and more staff, they would do more of this. So next slide, and there's another question for you in the chat. Go back one, thank you, which is what do you believe could be some of the benefits to children of parent leadership? What are some of the benefits to children when their parents are engaged as leaders or organizers? And again, while you're thinking, I'm just going to read some quotes from our wonderful parent leaders on the next slide. So one parent leader said that her daughter watches the beautiful parent leader family. She's learning and using her voice to tell teachers what she needs. Someone said that them seeing the transformation into strong, powerful leaders has an impact. And another said, they are our future. So every space I am, my daughter's with me, which I love. And I'm going to read a few from the chat as well. Shirley, you said it sets an example for them to grow as advocates. It shows their parents care because they are so involved. I love that. Paula, children are learning directly from their parents, or learning how to shape their voice. Thank you. Let's see, just read a couple from folks we haven't heard from yet. Janine, children model what they see. They emerge as leaders themselves. Julia, confident, advocating for others. So yeah, feel free to keep putting these in the chat. We'll save the chat and can't wait to read these later. But we really are seeing that children are benefiting, and we're so excited to go deeper into this in later parts of the study. Next slide. Okay. So finally, just to sort of sum up what we think some of the big implications of this work are. So we found that parent leadership organizations are really on the forefront of meeting families' basic needs. And at the same time, they're providing the skills, the knowledge, and the networks that parents need to be effective leaders and organizers. These organizations are also a critical part of racial justice movements. And as such, they really need the resources, both funding, but also ample time for relationship building and having difficult conversations across race to continue to do this work really well. We also hope to see the field continue to grapple with how to engage more children of parent leaders, more fathers, grandfathers, and other male caregivers, and more members of LGBTQ+ communities. And we hope to see the field continue to build national networks of parent leaders like UPlan, which takes us to the next part of the webinar, which will be the Parent Power Map and Directory that we've created for this study. But before I turn it over to Jennifer to talk about that, we just want to take a few minutes to kind of open it up to folks and see what questions and comments you have.
This is Diana Otaf from the National Center for Parent Leadership Advocacy and Community Empowerment. And we have 70 members all over the country that are parent-led family serving organizations. And I just put something in the chat, which is that nobody's talking more than they, than everybody's talking more than they ever have about parent leadership, parent engagement, parent voice. But unfortunately, it's in many cases, it's really just lip service. And that's especially true if you talk about the parents whose children have the poorest outcomes and who face the greatest discrimination. And you can see it very well in HR 5, the supposed Parents' Bill of Rights that passed the House, which really is not about Parents' Bill of Rights, but it's about the, enhancing the right of a small group of parents to basically impose their will on the vast majority of parents, and particularly those parents who themselves or their children face discrimination. So I think this is really an important time for this effort to be happening, and we need to have some collective action to make a change.
Thank you so much, Diana, for that. Absolutely. And I think that's one of our goals with this report, is really to sort of lift up the stories about parent leadership and organizing that aren't being told right now, and define what meaningful parent leadership and organizing that truly meets families where they are and cares about the people behind these movements, what that actually means. Natasha posted in the chat about the lived experience bill in Washington. Natasha, do you want to tell us about that? That sounds really interesting.
I would love to. Sorry, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
There's some technology stuff going on today. Yeah, so the lived I'm sorry. The lived experience bill was passed in our state, I think last year, and it and it's funding parents who serve on government committees or sit on like steering work groups and such. So they get, their participation is covered, their travel and lodging, and I think they get a stipend. April did all the work on that. I'm sorry, she's sick and isn't here today. I know she'd love to say more, but I do know that also currently in our legislature, we're fighting a bill called Nothing About Us Without Us. And it will require at least 3 parents to be included in government committees or policy steering committees that are creating policy that will affect families. I think today might be our cutoff, and we're fighting for it pretty hard today, doing a lot of call to actions and such. But the lived experience bill, we were so proud to get it passed. And now there's a steering committee that's like creating the rules to implement it, so that, you know, most of the time those stakeholder meetings include all the people who work and get paid to go. So this is an important piece of making sure that parents can participate and not be impacted financially.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, Natasha. And Muna Hussein has her hand up, and I think that'll be our last comment or question for this section, but feel free to put things in the chat and we'll share our contact information so you can always reach out to us. Muna?
Thank you so much. My question is, you know, I was seeing how much each organization or parents are focusing, but what was the race of those leaders, parent leaders? Did you come out the answer of how much, when we're talking about color, identity, who are those leaders, who are those parents who are doing the work?
Yeah, great question. So the majority, the most common group that organizations reported were Black parents. So 146 out of the roughly 180 organizations that participated reported working with Black parents. And then the next common was Latinx parents, then white, then bi or multiracial, then Asian, then Indigenous, then Middle Eastern, and then Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander. So again, these are mainly organizations that are led by Black and Latina or Latinx women. Great, thank you, Nina. Okay, so I will turn it over to Jennifer now. Thank you everyone so much for your wonderful comments and questions.
Thank you so much, Joanna. I'm going to share my screen to talk in a minute about the Parent Power map and directory. My name is Jennifer Cosleon, pronouns she, her, ella, and I'm the co-principal investigator on the Parent Power and Leadership Project. So really excited to have you all and see so many familiar faces and new faces. But I just want to pause and reflect that both this study, the survey, the Parent Power map and directory wouldn't be possible without the parent leaders and organizers and staff who support them and who helped us to co-create this. So I just want to give them a huge shout out for always showing up, for not only every day in their communities, but also as a part of moving this work forward and sharing all of the great work that they're doing across the country in hopes of growing the movement. Parent Power Map and Directory was created in response to early conversations with many of you regarding what would be helpful in the field of organizing and leadership development and for the larger movement of parents across the country. And so this directory was one small part of putting research into action, and in this case, the survey into action, and being one small part of helping to create the community that you all do on the ground every day with your work. And so in the directory, groups who took the survey and who opted into being included in the map and directory could share their social media handles, their website, the location of their headquarter, the main issue areas that folks were working on, as well as demographic information. So the question that Muna asked about, like, what's the demographic information? What are the races of the parent leaders? That's something that groups could also opt into sharing in this directory. And so we really see this as an opportunity for groups, large and small, to literally see each other on this map, to see themselves as part of a larger movement, and hopefully to engage with one another if they aren't already connected. And so how do you find the directory and the map? The first step is you can go to the Parent Power and Leadership Project website, and you can go to the Parent Power Directory tab, and then you can click on the map. And I invite all of you to do that after today's webinar, but I'm going to go through a quick tutorial of how to use it. And this way we can have more of a demonstration. And so this is the website. If you go to at the top, you see the directory tab. You click on that. And then this brings you to a page that looks like this, where you can see the initial map of all of the organizations that opted into being part of the directory. And if you hover over a dot, you'll see more information about the organization itself, and including where it's located, the issue areas they're working on, their social media handles and such. I also want to note that if you continue scrolling to the bottom, you'll be able to view the entire data set, including like the spreadsheet of the directory. And so if you are more of a spreadsheet person and you rather see that, you can click that and view the entire spreadsheet with the information from the directory. You can also here click to take the survey, which you can opt into being part of the directory. And so if you're not already on this map and you want to be, or if you took our survey and said you didn't want to be in the map, but now that you see how wonderful it is, you want to be, please reach out to us and let us know. We'd love to have you on here. And so I'm going to go through and just show you what some of the interactive features of the map are, and answer any questions that we might have, or also engage in a conversation around like how you think you might use this. And I'm getting some Zoom alerts about issues on my end, so hopefully I can keep you guys on. And if you can't hear me, please just flag that for me. I'm going to try to close some things up here. Okay, so this is the Tableau web page, and if you go to this web page, you can search by the name of the organization. If you want to look directly at one particular organization, you can search by issue area. So I invite one of you to come off mute and say one issue area that you'd like me to try here, or feel free to put it in the chat. You can select whether the organization is part of a larger organization, and then that repopulates the map. I always recommend that you clear the filters once you do that, so that you go back to your map. But does anyone want to shout out an organization that we can try this out in real time? I see some in the chat. Early learning or childcare, okay. So early learning, we're typing it in. It's a wild card, so you can put childcare, and you can put child, for instance, and you can see all the organizations that primarily work on early childhood education. You can add another issue area, and you can find the organizations that primarily work on that issue area. One recommendation is to start by going to the programming tab, which is right here at the top of the page. When you go to that tab, you can type in a state to see which organizations have programming there. So does someone want to come off mute and say a state so that we can try it?
New Jersey.
Okay, New Jersey, thank you. So you will see all the organizations that have programming in New Jersey on this page. You can continue to scroll down and look at those. And so once you know that, then you can get, look deeper at some of the organizations, right? Like Abriendo Puertas, you could go to at a glance. And I say that because that's the first one on the list. And if that group chose to share more information, including demographic information, you'd be able to see that. You could see that Abriendo Puertas has existed for 11 to 15 years. They primarily want to connect with other groups around base building, and they work with English learners. They work with young parents, undocumented parents, and they are primarily working on the following issue areas: early childhood education, economic justice, K through 12, racial equity, and others. And so this is just a quick snapshot of what's possible. The third link, which is the demographic link. Oh, see, I didn't follow my own advice about clearing the search, because it will translate through tabs. So you want to make sure to clear that search. And you do that by clicking the X, or you could also just refresh the page and then it'll go back to the original map. And so if you go to the demographics tab, then you can see on this map, for instance, how many of the parent leaders in the organization identify as Black or African American. And so if you scroll down here, you'll see these are the responses of the organizations. So for organizations that said about half identify, you can see who those are by hovering over, right? You want to clear the search. You want to look at something else. How many leaders identify as Middle Eastern? Here are the responses, and you could again hover over to look at that. Or if you prefer the spreadsheet, you can see that here at the bottom, and it will be highlighted there. And so I know there's a lot of information here. We invite you to hop on, play around with all the different features, reach out if you have any questions. I did want to, before we end this demo, is share that you can also, if you're using Google Chrome, for instance, you can change the language. So you would right click and go to translate to Spanish, and you can see that this would translate some of the features, not all, but for instance, so that you can have some language translation there. And so now I want to just ask you all about how you would, well, first, if you have any general questions about the directory, and then we can go into perhaps how you would like to, or how you envision yourself using the directory within your work. So yes.
I don't think I see Natasha's question in the chat.
Oh,
She asks, if you don't have a link to the map, how can you find it? And what are the search parameters for search engines?
Sure. So one very easy way of finding it is if you go to Tableau Public, you can type in Parent Power and Leadership Map, and you can find the map that way. You can also find it on our webpage, which again, you just click on the tab of the Parent Power Leadership Map and Directory, and you can find it. Good question. So how do you all envision using the directory?
I put something in the chat, I'm sorry, but
Oh,
how
sure.
do you, how can you add to what you originally put in the survey? Because I did not list all the states and territories where National Place has members and would like to, because I see others have done that. So how do you do that?
Yeah, just reach out to us and we're happy to update it. It's just as simple as us updating a spreadsheet, the spreadsheet I showed. And so we can easily do that and have it reflect.
And Iris, to answer your question, no, the map's not complete. It's not comprehensive at all. We tried to capture as much as we could, but we definitely encourage folks to take the survey. All of the organizations listed on the map took the survey, and that's how they became part of the map. And so if there are organizations who would like to be added, that's how we encourage folks to be added to the Parent Power map and directory. So it's always
Thank you,
evolving
Parker.
as we learn. Of course, yeah, always evolving as we learn about new organizations.
Yeah, so if you're interested in joining the map or modifying any parts of it, reach out to us. And we can certainly do that. Other questions that folks have or other thoughts on how they envision using this directory?
I can imagine using it as our program moves from, I mean, we do state and federal activities, and so finding other other organizations in America that work on maybe some of those issues and being able to connect with them so that we're not reinventing the wheel. If they're doing something and they're doing it well and we want to step into that space, then we can use this map to follow their lead.
And I would add to that, in addition to doing that, it's also a good power building strategy on a number of levels, to, especially on a national frame, with all of the groups that we're able to identify across the country that are working on a particular issue. What if we could combine forces to frame that from a national perspective and have all of these groups, for example, come to the Capitol or do the same action on a particular day? So it's a power building asset too. And in addition to that, when we're talking about funders across the country, the more that we're trying to get them to work in partnership with the groups that they fund as opposed to the hierarchy, this is an excellent tool to help them identify and connect with groups that they haven't funded that are doing some amazing work that they might be able to start filtering some of that funding to them too.
Thank you, Rose and Natasha. Appreciate you both. In addition to others, we also think that this could be a source for the media as well to hear the perspective of different organizations. And so we'd love to share a Q&A that we did that was published this week in the chat about the survey results and our thoughts around like how the directory could be used by the media as well to reach out for comments and to hear parents and listen to parents and share the policy priorities of parents. So I know we're coming close to time, but I invite you to continue to share in the chat your thoughts, and would like to turn it over to Parker to close us out.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. So I'm really grateful for folks who were able to join us. And before we finish up in the next few minutes here, there's a question about how to get your organization on the map. And we really would love to feature as many organizations as possible. The map does not have a limitation in that way. So if you see that your organization is not featured, if there are things that you want to change about your organization's details, the first way to do that to ensure that your organization is actually on the map so folks can connect with you is to take the survey. And we would love to share the survey with folks if you have not taken it. And we can put that survey information in the chat. If there are other organizations that have not been featured on the map and you think they would be a wonderful addition, feel free to share it with them. If you're unsure if your organization took the survey, I would recommend first searching on Tableau to see. And then if not, you can also feel free to take the survey and reach out to us as well. And we would love to learn more about your organization, to use what you share with us as a way to help connect folks, throughout various locations across several issue areas and different features. So the other thing is just now we have a few minutes, for any questions that folks may have. I do want to share that as perhaps folks are thinking about questions, that Joanna talked a lot about our phase 1. You can access the report and the executive summary of that report through the links that Danielle just dropped in the chat. Thank you so much, Danielle. And we would love for y'all to read kind of what we've been doing with the project and where the project is looking to go. But in the next few minutes, any questions that folks have?
There is one question in the chat, Parker or Jennifer, whoever can best answer, but it was about if organizations are offering virtual services, how would that be captured on the map, or can that be captured on the map? And Vesla, please feel free if I didn't capture that fully.
Great question. So all the organizations that we surveyed had a location that they provided where they were headquartered. And so in some cases that was a PO box close to, where they provided programming. And so that's the location we use to geocode the location of the organization. But in terms of like where they provide programming, I think that's an excellent suggestion that that we can think about how to represent that. If groups are providing solely virtual programming and not in-person programming. I don't think we heard that from anyone that we connected with, that they don't do any in-person. Most were doing some hybrid combination, but I think that's a good thing to look into and to think about how to represent that. Thanks, Vesla.
Yeah, thanks. I have one more follow-up question if we have time. I'm wondering how this could be helpful or useful to parents in our state who are interested, or any given community who are interested in taking this. This feels amazing and really helpful for service providers to sort of understand the landscape, but I'm wondering if there's any plans or ideas about turning it into something. Hey, I'm a parent, this is what I'm looking for, this is, these are the things that I would need to participate, et cetera. Because I think that's the goal for all of us who offer these sort of classes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think parents, we would love to see parents use the map and, start by looking at where they're located and seeing what organizations are offering programming that took the survey and are on the map, right? And then get in touch with those organizations to get involved. So we'd love for that to be a way for parents to be able to get involved in organizing if they're not already connected. So please help us in sharing this with folks, sharing it with your networks, taking a look at the links that we've shared in the chat that have both the full report, which has a lot of beautiful photos and images, and hopefully is a is an easy read, but we also have an executive summary that's a lot shorter than the full report, which gives you the top highlights of our findings. And so we have that for you all, and we're really excited to share it first with you. It just came out this week, and so really excited to be able to share that with you. And we welcome your messages and emails. I'm going to drop my email in the chat, and feel free to reach out to me or Joanna or Parker or anyone else on the team. And just again, want to thank everyone for being here, for being part of making this possible. Again, it would not be possible without you, without your work, your dedication, your love for your community. And as you can see, we want to uplift your work, and we want to share with the world how your organizing and leadership development is important, not only for policy change, but also for transformational change of our families, of our children, and learning and growth of our communities. So please reach out. Our email addresses are on the slide, and we look forward to continuing to work with you to make this better and to continue to improve the ways that we can each be part of building community and strengthening the movement of progressive justice for all of our communities. So thank you again for being here, for taking the time, and we will be in touch.